thank you everybody for taking time out of your evenings. And I know it's a very dark and gloomy evening outside, but thank you for giving me your time to listen to me. Just essentially give an initial brief sort of 15-20 minute overview of the climate action plan, where this initially came. Sorry, that was a bit of feedback there. Sorry. So just set the scene. So my name's Adam. I'm the Climate Change and Environmental Protection Project Officer. Joined in November, and tonight I'll just give a brief sort of 15-20 minutes overview of the Climate Change Action Plan. We'll then do a bit of a question and answer session just to get sort of initial thoughts and feedback. And then, as Paul alluded to, do a bit more of a sort of workshop style event to look at a range of different areas, what people's feelings are in terms of the strategies and policies we've got in place at the moment. What things do you feel we should be doing more or going faster on, or doing more of? So a bit of a two-way interaction, really keen to keep it quite interactive. So just to start off, really just set the scene with the climate emergency. Why is it something we should be caring about? Why is it something that's quite integral importance, both what we do in everyday life and also the way the council operates, the climate commitments that the council have made, what that looks like and what that forms. And then just give a little bit of a brief sort of overview to the types of investments and projects that we've been doing really since the offset that have happened over the last sort of year or so, before my time, and then where we're looking at taking things next, really. So a bit of a full circle. So this is probably one of the nicest schematics I've been able to find for climate change. It's a great looking figure, and it's coming from the European Climate Commission's report, and it just quite nicely summarises up. And climate change is transboundary. It doesn't just affect us. It's a global problem. We all form part of that. And when we look at the UK, there's a couple of key sort of areas really that you can sort of call our risk metrics. As the climate warms due to an increase of emissions, and if it goes unchecked, it will continue warming. There's more energy in the atmosphere, to drive more extreme weather, and we are very much now starting to see, more extreme weather happening, whether that be looking at flooding or winter storms. In Ryedale, we're no strangers to flooding. The picture on the top there was taken 2 years ago, just looking over in Old Malton. Thankfully everything was fine there, but as we progress down, unfortunately, with climate change, some parts will continue to happen regardless of emission reductions. It's things that we have to be quite conscious with, really, is understanding what our risks are and what we need to do to mitigate them, in addition to just adaptation as well. The other side of this, I think, really is almost understanding that outside of just the weather events and the things that we can see, it's also got a health and a well-being risk as well. As temperatures rise, and also the stress that this is put on, the different sectors within both, I suppose, the economy, agriculture, all the other parts that we a lot of the time take for granted as part of this, the stress that's put on that has a risk as well. So it's understanding that climate affects all parts of the system, if you like, whether it be the social, the economic, or the environmental part. And that very much forms that you've got to almost take all of these bits together and look at it as a whole picture, and not just different silos, but act and almost get progress in a single direction with everything. So it's quite a nice schematic. Sorry, you probably can't see the text on the side, which just for different areas sort of list the different types. Europe will have a different risk than, say, to the UK due to its geographical location on there. So almost taking all of that into account, really, sort of turning the clock back to 2019, Ryedale District Council, along with many other organisations and public bodies, declared, and rightly so, a climate emergency. It was very much the first step for Ryedale in acknowledging that, yes, we know there's a problem, and you know what, right, this is the moment to start doing something very much about it on there. In terms of the commitments that came out of that initial declaration, you can go onto the website and have a little look at more about those. But there's three sort of key themes that very much dictate and very much direct what we want to do as a council. The first bit there is, it's leading by example. It's showing that as a council, we want to decarbonise and do the best that we can across all of our different areas, whether it be our day-to-day running and systems that we provide to the community, but then also look at delivering, energy conscious projects such as things such as street lighting. And I'll talk a little bit more about these later on, but it's very much about doing positive investment that's going to help reduce our emissions, and also improve the community and the well-being of our community as a whole. And then the third area very much then is acting, it's working with others. We very much know that, just Ryedale District Council decarbonising isn't alone going to solve Ryedale as a whole decarbonising. So we've very much got to work with others across, the community, business as well, and across the whole different sector to make sure that we're all going down this pathway together in the most inclusive manner possible. So I think these three themes are really quite important and very much show the commitment that Ryedale District Council has to doing the best that it can in terms of climate change and adaptation. Very much which came out of that, and this is obviously very much predating my starting this role, is the Climate Change Action Plan. It's the main document from a climate change perspective that drives the type of investment, the projects we want to lead, and very much where we want to put Ryedale in as we continue down net zero. The document in itself is very much a living document. We see it as very much a fluid entity. We don't want it to stay stationary and stagnant. We want to keep it under constant review because we want to try and incorporate joint learnings from other councils, other organisations, very much learn from one another to see what others are doing and see whether we can bring best practices that either we're already doing or we need to be bringing into that. So it's very much a fluid document. I think it's very right that we keep it that way, because as technologies advance and also approaches and policies advance, we need to be ready and adapt for that. So I think fluidity is the best approach, really. So what I'd like to do over the next 5-10 minutes really is just take you down a journey of the 4 sort of different areas that we put our plan into, the types of projects that we've been delivering on these, and then some key sort of investment bits that are going to be coming up over the next sort of 12 months really as we head towards the local government reorganisation in 2023. So the first bit here, and that's probably not a bus in Malton. I think that's probably an old stock picture of a London bus, I think there. But transport forms sort of a key part of our plan, and it sort of takes 2 parts. It's very much looking at the infrastructure within Ryedale for transport, and then the second bit then is very much looking at almost how do we future-proof what we want our transport sector to look like. Probably a key project just to kick off initially would be cycle routes, active travel, promoting people to essentially leave their private car at home, get out, use cycle routes, very much have that active exercise going on that's going to improve their well-being, and other things as well. So quite recently, and most of you will probably be very well aware of this, we've had the Malton to Pickering cycle route that's just been completed. There's a great leaflet online for that. Oh, sorry. Flicked on the slide too quickly there. So the leaflet's just been published for this, so I please really do suggest you go and have a look at it. I'm going to say it's very much the first of many projects we want to be looking at investing in this, and the economic team are very much leading on this, and a very key really for Ryedale to continue with its great reputation as a great place to be a cyclist and get involved with cycling activities. So yeah, the Malton to Pickering cycle route's about 12 miles long, and that's just been completed recently. We're now looking at other areas, and others in the team are, areas such as a Malton to Norton scheme and other areas on there. So a great bit of investment, and we hope we're just going to build on this great progress that's been made. The second part really then is almost taking a step back and thinking, well, we know from government legislation that's come down recently that the sale of private cars, so diesel and petrol cars by 2030, that's very much been phased out. Electric vehicles are very much going to be the way forward, but to be able to meet that, and it's quite important, we have to put in the infrastructure now so that when we get to this point, it's going to be a smoother transition for members of the public and also the organisations that use these vehicles as well. So in order to meet this, currently we have 30 charge points, which we've invested over a range of different settings. There's one just down the road from me in Wentworth Street car park in Malton, a couple in Helmsley and Pickering, and these are the sort of the faster charging units. And there's the first picture down there on the left is just an example of these. We've also tried to look at this a bit circular as well and think, well, actually, okay, we're doing this in terms of the public settings, but actually we need to be doing this in-house as well to make sure that as we try and decarbonise our own transport operations, that we've got the infrastructure in place as well. So there's currently 10 in RDC settings. So I think there's 4 at Ryedale House, and then a couple down at our street scene depot as well. We very much see this as, a great place to kick off. We want to try and understand where we need to put our next set of charging units. We very much want to continue great investment in this, and also analyse the statistics as well of the charge uses. Where are people using them most? Where do we need to further bolster our strategy on this? So it's a great progress really, but we very much want to build on this, and that ties quite nicely into the last 2 points. So the street scene team that is run by the Resources and Waste Group at the council, they're actively looking at almost how can they start to decarbonise their vehicles, technology allowing a lot of the time. So is it their more support type vehicles, their smaller vans? They're actively looking at can they start electrify some of these and, losing the charging point infrastructure to further support this. And then more directly for our officers, and I believe John Law, who's in post before me back in 2020, sort of alluded to some of this, that we're actually looking at a pool car scheme. Obviously COVID permitting it at the moment really to get our officers, if they need to go to meetings and other things, using a electric pool car that's going to reduce the carbon mileage and be there very much as an entity that people can use and get them out of their internal combustion engine cars really. So yeah, so quite a lot going on there. I don't want to spend too much more on that, but they're sort of the key take-home messages really for transport in terms of the action plan, but hopefully a lot more to come over the next 12 months or so. So the next bit really I'd sort of call buildings and assets really, and if we're going to distill this down, the main sort of project that's come out of this over the last 12 to 18 months has been the LED street lighting. So this was led by Joss, and this was replacing RDC-owned street lighting in Malton and Norton and using more energy efficient LEDs and also park night lighting strategies as well. In the end, it was around 260 lighting retrofits that was done. And sort of the take-home message from that is we've been able to save per annul about 32 tonnes of CO2 emissions per year in terms of the reduced energy consumption of these street lighting. So it's quite a nice story really, but we're really keen not to stop there, but actually carry on and replace the rest of the RDC-owned street lights across the greater Ryedale area. So a lot of other areas, but outside of the Malton and Norton, there's just over 200, I think. So this is very much one of our key projects for this year. Really, is getting the rest of those street lightings retrofitted. Some of the areas are also sort of encroaching onto dark skies, so we want to also be very innovative in the technologies that we're using there to obviously protect the dark sky status of these areas to make sure they're not impeded as well. So yeah, we very much want to get this project pushed on and also be very quite innovative about the technologies that we're going to use as well, and work with the local groups to get that pushed through. Another part which is also quite important to this is almost assessing in terms of, I suppose, best practice, how energy efficient our buildings are. There's already been a lot of work done to look at, for say Ryedale House, switching the energy tariff to one that's renewables based, but then also looking actively at retrofitting and energy generation measures on our buildings as well. There's still a lot of work going on in the background to understand, and obviously with LGR coming up, there's certain restraints as to what we may or may not be able to do, but it's keeping a very good steer really on what we need to do to decarbonise our buildings and increase the efficiency of either water use or other resources in these buildings, really, is to promote best practice and also do the right thing. And then tying all of that together, we're actively each year doing carbon accounting. So that's a case of analysing all of our emissions across our council, understanding where the key emission sources are, and as we put in different strategies and technologies, understanding how these are decreasing our emissions per year. So it's quite an important thing really to baseline where we are and understand where do we need to get to be in terms of carbon reduction targets on there. So just to sort of move on to the next area really, but obviously happy to answer any questions around all these projects afterwards. The next bit on here, and I've tried to condense this down just into a couple because it is a really big part of the council, and this is our operations. Now this very much encompasses everything from our resources and waste team with the street scene, to procurement, to our local plan, to our housing. So it very much ties in essentially how we want climate to be embedded in every type of operation that we're doing at the council. So maybe just to start on the top one, which is what we're doing around on recycling. So this is led by the resources and waste team. We're actively looking at our mini recycling centres. You'll see a lot of these dotted about in sort of the supermarket car parks, such as the one in Morrison's. and others. And it's a case of understanding what are our recycling rates, what are people recycling most. If we're looking at sort of increasing the materials that we might want people to be able to recycle, how should we do this? Getting just a good general feel of if we want to try and stop these materials that aren't being recycled going to waste and the carbon emissions that come from this, what do we need to do to essentially remove these materials and keep them in a more circular economy, really? So it's quite a nice bit of work, really, to further increase recycling, which is really quite important in terms of mitigating those carbon emissions going to waste, or materials having to be brought in via export or being made. So there's still quite a bit to do on there, but it's an active bit of work that's going on. The homes team has been doing great work, and this has been going on for a lot longer than I've been in post, and will very much be continuing over the years to do with the local authority deliveries of the home energy efficient grants. It's done via grants or loan schemes, and very much is looking at supporting sort of low income housing, and also housing in sort of areas that doesn't have particularly great access to heating and other measures, and very much supporting them in improving their well-being and their energy efficiency, and also home warmth as well. So there's lots of work going on there. We're just about to start the Hue 1, which is the Green Homes Grant. These are all come down from BEIS, essentially, as the funding stream. And this is going to be an NYCC led scheme, but it's across North Yorkshire, essentially. So Ryedale will be part of the delivery of this funding as well, looking at air source heat pumps, insulation, whole range of different measures to support the community and having a better quality of energy efficiency in their home, essentially. So lots going on there. And then another side of that very much is looking at EPC ratings. There is legislation out now that very much means if you're in a rented property, it shouldn't be below E, which is, that's very right. And we're actively helping to support the rented sector, really, in getting these houses that aren't complying up to the right energy efficiency, whether it be through support schemes or very much mitigation measures to make sure that these homes are very much fit for purpose for these communities. So better work going on there as well. But to tie everything in, we've also got the local plan coming up for its review. So working quite a lot with the planning team to very much develop how we're going to take forward our climate ambitions in terms of the new building standards legislation that's coming. Obviously, from the 1st of this year, a new build has to have an electric vehicle charging point, which is brilliant news, got to say. And then the whole other range of better building standards that are coming in as well. So there really is a whole range of different things going on. Probably a lot more to that I could talk about outside of 15 minutes, but I'm just trying to keep it brief and on a couple of main points, really. So just to move on to probably the area that's got the most in it and very much involves us not so much doing things in-house, but very much working with Ryedale as a community, which is such an important thing. We very much know that, as a council, we have to decarbonise. We very much have to support and enable Ryedale as a whole to be able to decarbonise as well. We've got a number of different ways that we're trying to do this. We're very keen to support community-based schemes, community groups through partnerships with great partners such as REG and other groups, and then also great initiatives such as the Circular Malton and Norton initiative as well. The anaerobic digestion project is starting to gain steam. They have a whole range of other projects such as the Crew one that are going on. So it's very much supporting local community-based schemes to meet the community-based climate challenges on there. So it's quite a diverse range of different projects going on there. The other side of it then is obviously acting very much towards grant schemes, so it's supporting local community schemes. The economic team ran the vehicle charging grant scheme, which I believe closed at the end of December. That was very much about supporting community-based organisations to get grant funding for charging schemes, or working more collectively and looking for rather bigger investments as a bigger group on there. We've also had the first round of the environment grant, which was very much based at supporting community based organisations with energy efficiency, so installing better insulation, better heating, those kind of projects or investments. Are also looking at biodiversity improvements, so planting trees and other type schemes there. So it's very much not the only type of environmental grants we'll be running, but it's just the initial types that we've been trying to push out. quite importantly, I suppose, as we transition down to net zero, is looking at where we get our energy from. So we're actively involved in the North Yorkshire LEP-run local area energy plan. So this very much is a strategic assessment for the entire of North Yorkshire as to the energy requirements of different areas, and very much as we start to transition down net zero, and we know that the strain on the national grid is only going to increase in terms of people charging their cars, heating their homes through gas-free means. It's a case of being able to strategically plan for where that energy is going to come from and how it'll be managed on there. So it's a key project that we're involved with the LEP that are leading. More recently, we've also done a couple of events very much to promote tree planting, which is a really big part of net zero. The first one was at the Milton Rooms. We got a whole range of different funders, from the the National Trust, to the North Yorkshire Moors, to other bodies on there, and also got landowners and other potential planting stakeholders there to discuss the types of funding available to them, their queries about do they have any land that they want to plant trees on, and essentially just start those conversations and that knowledge exchange. We got some really good feedback from that, and also more recently we did a tree giveaway scheme, which is essentially part of National Tree Week, but it very much couples into the Queen's Jubilee on there. So in total we've had 26 that have gone to different parishes, and we've got some great pictures of different parishes planting their trees. There's 4 different species, and then also a similar thing to a number of local schools as well. So it's been quite nice really to keep that very community focused. And then just jumping down to the next point in here, a bit that I'm really quite passionate on pushing really is promoting what I call positive climate behaviours. It's very much a case of working with the community in the wider area to promote active travel, get people out of their private cars, very much highlight the positive implications that these will have for people in terms of health, well-being, but also in terms of air quality and other quite important measures. So it's a bit of work we're starting to do some thinking around as well, and then similarly to do with almost giving people better advice and knowledge exchange to do with how they can improve their energy efficiency in their homes as well. So very much building together a collection of knowledge so that people can easily access it, easily get hold of this essentially. The final 2 bits on here very much are looking at a couple of other projects that are gaining pace as well. I know that Third Energy are looking at the geothermal potential for Ryedale, which is really quite an exciting project. And then also other local energy type schemes as well. I believe there's a couple of parish councils that are looking at putting solar panels on top of their village halls and other projects. So more sort of local and smaller energy-based schemes as well that could potentially feed into the grid. So yeah, there's so much going on essentially, which is the key bit. And then I suppose the final point really is colleagues in the economic development team have also been doing a lot to do with ecotourism. They very much see Ryedale as, as we talked about earlier on, to do with the cycling infrastructure, a real hub for ecotourism. It's making, the sheer wealth of tourism we get into Ryedale, understanding what is their carbon impact on Ryedale and how do they almost, get involved with either active travel or public transport to help mitigate their impact, and work to, very much support the businesses within Ryedale as well to do with the tourism sector as well. So I won't spend too much more time on this really. I'm very keen that people will probably have lots of questions and thoughts. I'm very, very keen to hear this. But I just wanted to essentially just finish with the word beyond, I think, really. We're very keen to leave a lasting legacy. The local government reorganisation is coming next year. We're very keen to get as many projects up and going and embedded as we can before this point. We also want to be quite broad. We want to be innovative. We want to do as much to do with both adaptation but also mitigation, because both parts are going to be really key in essentially, going down the right line with climate change, but also mitigating the worst implications of it, and also supporting Ryedale as a whole, not just through our carbon strategies for the council. So making sure that the entire of Ryedale is being supported down net zero. Just wanted to put these last ones up on here really. So these are taken from the carbon abatement pathways that the local enterprise partnership have put together. There's lots of different things that's got to happen between now and reaching net zero by 2038, which is the North Yorkshire target. There's going to be a lot to come, a lot of different infrastructure and a lot of different parts to this, and some are still very unknown with the technologies. But I do think, there's been some great infrastructure done already, and I'm very excited to see, where we take our strategy going forward. Really, we very much want to be following the red line on the BBC's interpretation of the emissions pathway, and very much not the blue. So, just like to say thank you. Finish with a rather stunning picture of the Vale of Pickering there, and happy to answer any questions and hear thoughts.